Every year, tennis players from around the world compete for excellence, triumphing against all odds to emerge the champions. I'm your host, Madi Harrison. Join me as I get up close and personal with these dynamic individuals and find out what it takes to go for greatness. Let's go beyond the match. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Match. I'm your host, Madi Harrison. As some of you might know, I spent the last couple weeks on vacation, but I'm so excited to be back and to record my first ever kind of solo episode. Not a true solo episode, though, because I'm actually bringing my producer, Todd, on, and we're doing a Q&A. We've received lots of questions over the past couple of months through Instagram and through email. So Todd, you can take it away. I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Hi, Madi. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun to produce half the season so far. We're like halfway through the first season of the show. I always like to, for those that follow any of the other Metacortex Publishing websites, I produce like eight podcasts. And once a season, I usually come on for Q&As because we get a high volume of emails and social media messages asking questions to the host. So I kind of twisted your arm and I thought, let's do a solo episode where you can kind of talk about yourself a little bit or answer questions that people might have about tennis or your opinions on things. And that's what we're doing today.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure. So this first question is a pretty straightforward one. What keeps you motivated?
Oh, hitting me with a hard one right off the bat. Depends how deep I'm going with this answer, I guess. But on a day-to-day basis, I would say I don't always feel motivated every single day. I'm not sure I know too many people who do feel motivated every single day. But in general, I like to think I'm quite a positive person by nature and quite driven. And I think that, tennis, one of the things it taught me over the years is that you're not always going to feel your best every day, whether it be energy wise, you get fatigued a lot, whether you're not playing your best on the court, but you have to still find a way to push through those moments and kind of find a way. It also makes me think of that Rihanna meme where someone's like, what do you do on the days that you don't feel your best? And she's just like, fake it. And that's kind of what you do whenever I don't feel motivated some days. Just kind of fake it and get yourself up and keep going. And honestly, I try a little bit harder on those days to be extra positive, to be extra energetic. And I don't like anyone to see on those days if I'm not feeling my most motivated or something. And I'm a true believer that people feed off your energy and people feel it. And I always want to, leave a conversation with someone thinking like they feel better based on the conversation they had with me or from being around me. So I always just try extra hard on those days to not let people feel any of that lack of motivation or negativity.
Gotcha. That's good. You definitely stay motivated for our podcasts.
That's very true.
We haven't put one out late yet. So that's
very
good.
True. That's very true.
This next question is very specific. Were you drilled on catching the racket on your forehand as a kid? And then they write weird and specific, I know. So I feel like maybe this person knows you.
That was actually an Instagram question. So I did read that one before. But no, that's not something I'm familiar with. And if that is a thing, I kind of want to learn what it is because now I'm curious. But no, I was not drilled on catching the racket with my forehand. As a lot of people know, my dad was my coach growing up. And, he coached both my two older brothers and I, and we don't all have the exact same technique. We have variations, and he wasn't big on one way is the only way. So with me, he really, some people who might know what my forehand looks like, it's not a forehand you see all the time. He was really big on just being loose and contact point and timing. And if that's a technical thing, I'm not really familiar with what it is, but no.
Are they, and I mean, I don't know either, but do they mean if you're a righty, are you catching the racket with your left hand when you go through the motion of hitting the forehand? Is that what it means, or does it mean
That
something else?
could be, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not exactly sure either. But when I learned to play tennis, that was the form that they taught me, was low to high and catch the racket up at the top. And that's,
it very well could be.
I don't know.
That might
I'm
be
very
it.
curious.
That's making
So
me think now.
listener, whoever sent this in, tell us what you're talking about specifically, because I'm not really sure either. At first, when I first read the question, I thought, this is like, I didn't get it at all. And then the more we kind of went through this, I thought, wait a second, I kind of learned catching the racket with my left hand.
That actually is something I've heard at the end of the swing, but I was for some reason thinking more beginning of the swing. But that very well could be it. But if it is that, then that wasn't emphasized for me.
Right.
I wouldn't say.
When I was learning tennis in 1984, that like they had a certain, here's your stance, here's how you hold your racket. You're holding your racket with two hands, slide your right foot back, hit your forehand, catch the racket, bring it back into your ready position. Like that's what it was. And it was like they drilled everyone that same way, that was the speediest way to get your shots and get back to a ready position and all of that. But anyways, what do I know? You're the pro here. The next question is, what is your UTR?
Oh, what is your UTR? So UTR, it is usually like a very current rating system. It stands for Universal Tennis Rating. I haven't competed that much, and now it's been over a year since I've played a competitive match. So, and before that, it was another like 3 years. So it's been a while since I've actually competed a lot. I have no idea what my UTR is right now. I imagine it's unreliable. That's actually something they have on the app sometimes. It says like your percentage of reliability. Back in the day, though, my highest UTR was 11.34, which I'm not sure exactly what that would be in the world ranking systems on UTR right now, but that was my highest UTR.
Gotcha. What's the biggest life lesson you learned through playing tennis?
Ooh, that's another really good question, man. So many. There's so many life lessons just through the travel, through the people you meet, learning different cultures. But I would say one of the biggest standout things, though, is resilience and learning how to deal with failure, because in this sport, you fail all the time. Like if you think about it, if there's a draw of 64 or 128, there's only one person that's going to win the tournament. So that means all those other 63 or 127 people, they have lost. They end that tournament with a loss, and that is probably the freshest thing on their mind whenever they walk away from the tournament. They're going to remember that moment. So you really have to learn to be resilient and bounce back from all the losses and the failures, and keep perspective, because with those losses, there's a lot to be learned, and that's actually how you get better. You have to go through those moments to keep progressing and ultimately, get better and better and keep leveling up.
Good. That's great. The next question is, do you consider tennis an individual or a team sport?
Ooh, they're just hitting me with a lot of good questions here. I would say definitely individual. I mean, so much of what you do in this sport is alone. Now it's becoming a little bit different in terms of they're allowing coaching. College tennis, there's coaching allowed. At some pro tournaments now, there's coaching as well as some juniors. But I mean, it is still very individual. And at the end of the day, like, you're the only one holding the racket and playing. A lot of players out there competing on the pro tour, they're traveling alone every week. And not everyone is fortunate enough to have a coach or to have a physio or family member or friend to travel with them. The ones who are very lucky. And I've been in that position a few times where I've had a family member come with me. But I've also been on the other side of it where you're traveling alone for weeks on end. So definitely an individual sport, but like anything in life, it takes a team. Like you have to have a strong support system around you, whether it be a friend that you can FaceTime, which I would always do when I would travel. I would just FaceTime my friends all day long. But that support system is key, but the sport itself is very individual.
Yeah. Would you call would you call doubles a team?
For sure. Yeah.
That's
Doubles is more
you
of
have
a
a
team.
partner, right? You
Yeah.
have the team dynamic in a way.
Yeah.
Different
And
type
that's
of team.
it's very different. Like even whenever I've played doubles to singles, it's a very different feeling for me. Like I love doubles, but I have to say I love singles more just because it's all on you and you don't have to rely on someone else.
Right, right. The next question is, what can I study besides playing tennis to become a pro tennis player?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I would say everyone is different, you know. Whenever you're off the court, it doesn't always have to be tennis, tennis, tennis. That works for some people, but that does not work for everyone. I've had, you know, friends and family members that being tennis, 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 that works for them. So if you're that kind of person, I would say study like biomechanics, study um, kinesiology. That's what I studied in school. That's what I majored in. And I loved that because it relates to your body and obviously to sports and the biomechanics of it. And if you get injured, you kind of have a better understanding of what's happening and the reasoning behind it and what you can do to fix it. Some people, though, they need to get off the tennis court and get totally away from it and, you know, study something completely different. If they study at all, it might just be video games. It might be hanging out with friends, going for a bike ride, something else that just gets their mind away from it. So I would say find what works for you. And as long as that keeps you happy and relaxed, that's probably going to translate onto the tennis court more than anything else.
I'd like to add to this actually,
Go for it.
if you don't mind, Maddie.
Absolutely.
I would recommend really looking into business, the business side of things. I think people all too often don't think of being an individual in a sport as being a business, but you are kind of a brand name. And if you become successful at tennis, you're going to really want to know your way around licensing and how to hire yourself out for things and how to work with an entertainment attorney. And of course, taxes is a huge part of it, understanding what you can do with your money. So if you do get a big win, it doesn't shift your tax bracket, or the government's got their hand in your pocket for half your winnings or whatever. There's a
Yeah.
lot of ways around that. How to incorporate yourself. There's a lot of a lot of things I think people should learn about just kind of moving themselves forward, because athletes are public figures, really.
That's so true. And that's something that I started learning more about. It's so bad, but as I was finishing college, I don't know why people don't learn about this more in the beginning years of college, but it's just not the emphasis for everyone unless they're actually majoring in it. But I would totally agree with you. I wish that I started learning that more when I was like 17, whenever I first went to college. And yeah, I think that would have helped a lot along the way.
I think people don't understand, like, you enter a tennis tournament and it's on Hulu and you're on television. And once you're on television, you've now kind of broken out of the boundaries of just a person across from another person on a tennis court. You're a public figure now, and you will get fans somewhere, even if you aren't very good. Everyone that starts that maybe isn't very good still picks up fans.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare for them. The last question that I have here, as someone who sees loads of viral videos of players cheating during pro tournaments, what is your take on cheating and why is it so common?
It's actually a really funny question. So my take on cheating is that obviously it's wrong. You shouldn't cheat, but in a sport like tennis, sometimes there's just not referees around. And so, yeah, unfortunately, it's really common. I've been cheated so many times in matches. I was never the person to cheat first or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, obviously it happens. In terms of why, well, people sacrifice a lot in this sport to be able to play, whether it's financially, whether it's being away from family, and you never know what is going on in people's family. So it's just a lot of sacrifice and they want it to be worth it. So if someone's spending every penny that they have, maybe even going into debt to go play these tournaments, and it's match point and it's a tiebreaker in the third set and the opponent's ball's on the line and they call it out, that could be a reason why. And of course, whenever those things happen, a lot of the time it goes viral. So many more times though, it doesn't go viral. It happens so much. But yeah, it's kind
What
of
you're
sad. Oh, go
what you're
ahead.
saying is people cheat out of desperation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
obviously,
always, honestly, not always, but
yeah.
sometimes.
Well,
But some
obviously,
people just have
maybe
it in them.
a really fast ball or the sun's in your eyes, and maybe you think that something was in or out. I get it. Like that kind of thing happens. But purposely cheating must be out of desperation, right?
I wouldn't even say always. I mean, I had teammates that they just cheated, and it was not out of desperation.
Just for
It
out
was
of
just
fun.
like they would literally say, everyone does it, so I'm gonna do it. And like be so casual and nonchalant about it. And we'd be like, no, no. That's
Wow.
not how we want to win, and we don't want that reputation as a team either. But yeah, some people, it's just, also different cultures in different parts of the world. The tennis cultures are different. And so some places it might be the norm, and maybe it equals itself out in those places.
Should should tournaments go electronic and just get rid of umpires and line judges and just shoot lasers across the court and have everything analyzed? And if there's a dispute, go to the video.
Definitely. I mean,
You think so?
definitely.
Do
I
you feel that
do.
way with all sports or just tennis?
I would say that with all sports, yeah. If it's possible in a sport, yeah, why not? Because some of the bad calls. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember the episode with Nuno where he talked about one of the calls that happened in a match that he played, and it really changed the course of the match. Things
Yeah.
like that. I mean, that's affecting players' points, their rankings, the tournaments they get into, their prize money, the way they make a living. Like, for sure, if you can have the electronic system, they should, because unfortunately, like there's just some refs that they're not always paying attention, for one, especially at the lower level tournaments. They're just not the best. I don't know if it would be possible
A
from a
challenge
financial
system wouldn't
perspective to get the electronic system at all the
yeah.
lower level tournaments, but yeah.
A challenge system might not be a bad idea. There's a lot of sports where, you might lose a timeout if you challenge something and it was right, the call was right, and then you lose
Mm-hmm.
a time, like a penalty, like maybe you lose a point if you call for a challenge and the
Mm-hmm.
call was right, like there
Yeah.
could
I
be.
mean, they have that. They have it at the Grand Slams. They
Mm,
have challenges per set where players get a certain number of challenges.
mm.
And
Interesting.
yeah, they always had that. And yeah, electronic system though, I think is the way to go.
What's your advice to a tennis player who is at the tail end of their career? What happens post career? What do you advise
Oh,
people to do?
that's a really, really good question. I would say make sure you're ready to be done. Because if you're not ready to be done, you're gonna not be happy with whatever you dive into next, if you have something to dive into next. So yeah, like give it all you've got before you move on. But once you've moved on, like just be like confident with that decision, and just always remind yourself like you're making the right decision. And if you have something else, like another hobby or another passion that you can dive into, dive fully into it and just go for it. And there can always be like a little bit of an identity crisis as you go through that like transition period out of sport, which you've probably played your whole life, and then without the sport anymore, without waking up and going to practice every day, having tournaments, having goals, things like that. It can be really, really different, and there can be a really big void in people's lives. I've gone through it myself. I've seen other people go through it, and that can be really difficult. But the best thing is if you really have something else to dive into.
Right, right. What's your daily self-care routine?
I should develop one. I think there was a point in time that I actually had a better self-care routine, but lately I have definitely not. While I was on vacation, we were like, let's get up and go. We were not taking too much time to relax, much at all, and taking time for self-care. Um, and then now I wake up super early every day, and I have to like go pretty early. So unless I would wake up at like literally 4:30, I don't have like a morning routine. Um, and then sometimes I also am not home till super late, so I don't always get to have like an evening routine either.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, interesting. You mentioned you were traveling, you were on vacation. You
Yeah,
actually got to see some tennis while you were
I
overseas.
did.
What did you go
Yeah.
to? Tell the listeners about that.
So, a couple things actually. So, I got to go to Norway. I saw the like my first ever Davis Cup match that I got to attend, which was really cool. It was the number one junior in the world happened to be from Norway. I did not realize that when I was going there and going to the match. And I was watching, I was like, damn, this young kid's really good. And I was like, what is he ranked? And someone was like, oh, well, he's number one in the world. And I was like, oh, that makes sense why he looked so good. Um, so yeah, it was Norway versus Portugal, and I had a friend on the Portuguese team. So we were with the Portuguese team against the Norwegian crowd. But I have to say, I feel like the Portuguese team was even louder than the Norwegian crowd, which was really funny to me. But it was really fun. You know, the energy reminded me of college tennis so much.
That's great. That's
Mhm.
before you went on your vacation, we talked about doing a commentary on 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 uh, on the U.S. Open.
Mhm.
So, but we didn't get a chance to. We ran out of time, and you had to leave, and you were a little sick before you left, so we couldn't record. But I'm
Oh yeah.
curious, and maybe you can put a poll out for this. But let's ask the listeners: would you be interested in hearing a solo episode that's commentary on a big tournament?
Yeah.
Because I
I
think
think
that
that
would
would
be
actually be
fun.
really cool. I mean, I still want to do that. Hopefully people want to hear it.
Well,
I can ask the people what they want, but let's hope they say yes.
the U.S. Open was actually very exciting this year.
Yeah.
And it was, the heat was incredible, and there were just so many eventful things that happened during it. And I thought, well, if we
Yeah.
were going to talk about anything, this would have been the one to talk about.
Yeah, no, that would have been a really good one. Yeah. We missed the mark a little bit. I was sick. I was sick before the trip. I was sick the whole trip, unfortunately. I had to go to the doctor twice while on vacation, but I tried to block that part out because I really just powered through and pretended I wasn't sick.
I think she gave half the world COVID on her flight over there, and the
Let's
country
really
she was
hope
in.
not.
We just took the American COVID that's around and took it to Europe.
Oh gosh, no. I
Kidding.
did, yeah, I did test and it was negative, so it was not COVID.
So I'm going to turn the tables on you a little bit here at the end of this. You make your guests answer these questions. So I'm going to ask you, Madi Harrison, yes, no, or maybe
I know
so.
what you're gonna do. Yep. Here we go. Here we go. Let's get it.
Okay. So have you ever cheated an opponent?
I've cheated back, yeah.
Wait, you
Not
cheated
cheated
back?
first.
You've only cheated when someone cheated you first?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Have you ever no-showed on a practice?
No.
Have you ever drank soda during a match?
Yes.
What was
Needed
the
some
soda? Can you
energy.
say?
Coke.
Energy drink?
No, just Coke.
Just go. All right.
Yeah.
Have you ever drank alcohol during a match?
Uh as I'm walking on court, yeah. But I will say, I know that's a really, really bad look. I was not like planning to play, and my aunt was in town, and I went with my mom and my aunt to this breakfast restaurant, and my aunt was like, "Madison, you need a mimosa. You need a mimosa." So I had a mimosa like
I
as I was
hear
going
German
on court.
players drink on court. You think that's true? You think that's just an urban legend?
I don't know if it's on court. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, but I mean, I know friends that like whenever they finish, they just have a beer.
Have you ever cursed at a referee?
Oof, I don't think I've cursed. I've yelled, which I apologized for after, but I haven't cursed.
Have you ever made your team run in college?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Have you ever broken a racket?
Yes.
Broken multiple rackets in a single day?
Yes. Not my finest
Wow.
moment.
Temper.
It was just one bad year, you know?
How many rackets did you go through that year? Do you remember?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They didn't treat me right that year.
Wow. Have you ever not shook an opponent's hand after a match?
No. I've always shaken the hand.
Have you ever pretended to be sick or injured to skip practice or fitness?
No.
Have you ever overruled your doubles partner's call?
Yes.
Have you ever hit an ace to win a match?
Yes.
Nice.
That's a good feeling.
That's
You
great.
know, at first, I think I've answered that question before, and I was like, I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have. But I like felt like I had, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, damn, I've done that like a few times.
Wow. We'll have to change some of these up for season 2.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad you answered those. You put all our
Yeah.
guests on the spot many times with these, and I thought, I'm going to pull these
I
up.
don't
And then
always
do a
like the
few.
tables turning. Funny
Well,
enough, I couldn't remember what the questions were though.
that's great. Well, that's all I've got for today. Do you have anything you want to add or you want to talk about before we close out this episode?
No, I think that was super fun. I always like, getting to answer these Q&A questions that people ask. A lot of the times whenever I get them on Instagram, I reply to people. So we end up like having the conversation, and I've gotten to connect with so many people that way. And that's something that has been really amazing about it. And for everyone listening, for everyone who's asked questions, I would just say thank you. I really, really enjoy it. And it's, makes what I do worth it and fun and enjoyable for me.
Well, that's great. Well, I'll let you take it out and tell everyone how they can find us out there on social media and the interwebs.
Yeah, so I am on social media as CEO of Tennis, Madi Harrison, if you search my name, and on YouTube as CEO of Tennis. And that's, and I have my website, ceooftennis.com. But Instagram is the main thing that I post on and am most active on. So if you're looking to find me, I would definitely say like Instagram is the way. And yeah, we're gonna have this episode out this coming Thursday, and then bi-weekly on Thursdays. So you know how to find us.
Perfect. Well, we'll do this again sometime.
Yep. Thank you, Todd.
Bye-bye, Madi.
Thank you so much for listening to Beyond the Match. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at beyondthematch@outlook.com. We're available anywhere you listen to podcasts, and I do mean anywhere. Please also be sure to follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Match Podcast, and look for exclusive content from our episodes only found on our YouTube pages. Until next time, thank you for listening, and I will see you on the courts.
Metacortex Publishing hopes that you've enjoyed this presentation.
Please take a moment to listen to some other podcast offerings from Metacortex Publishing.
A quest is a search for something. And every week, the Quest podcast will show you how we know what we know through interviews with people that have incredible stories of dedication and perseverance. I'm your host, Todd Fisher. Join me in this thought-provoking and inspiring podcast of discovery. Find us anywhere you listen to podcasts.
The Danceology podcast interviews the great masters of dance, the working professionals starring in today's most exciting shows, and the rising stars ready to amp up the craft. I'm your host, Edyta Stawenska from Dancing with the Stars. Join me as I dive into the world of dance, uncovering unique stories and the fascinating personalities of industry professionals on Danceology.
Cult Following is a podcast that studies the personalities and common traits of cult leaders and their followers. Get the real story behind these infamous and oftentimes tragic cults from a new perspective, through exhaustive research, and from interviews with people that were there. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
The No Earthly Explanation podcast investigates the things that are unexplainable, hosted by world-renowned investigative researcher Donald R. Schmidt and scientist Ellie Ringo. Follow them as they look for evidence for things that have no earthly explanation. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Todd Fisher and Anthony Smith and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure to visit the official website for Metacortex Publishing at metacortexpublishing.com or find us on social media for other unique content.